On this episode of the Nugget Project, we play with wires. Today, the first thing I want to do is make up this panel here, which will have our kill switch and everything in it, because I went and picked up a kill switch from Revolution Race Gear yesterday. Let's have a gander at that. So basically it's a, it's not just a standard big ass switch, so that's where our positive goes through from the battery, but we've also got leads for our ignition. So when you flick this switch off with your big red switch, it kills the power from the battery, but also kills the ignition. And then we've also got this cable here, which goes, it joins up to the switch, but it goes out to the scuttle panel on the driver's side. So we're going to mount it somewhere around here, and that means if anything goes wrong, the marshals can come up, grab the switch, bang, and it turns off the switch inside the cabin and kills the car, which is good. And then we've got our sticker for after we've painted to show where the switch is, so that's all good. But before we do that, we need somewhere for this switch to live. So we've cut out our template, which matches up with that, and we'll get a sheet of alloy and we'll cut that out. And then we also have to make a slot for the heater controls, so we'll copy that from the old panel we had in there. So let's get going. Lots of cutting and filing later, and we have ourselves a panel. So it fits in there somewhere like that. Not bad. The screw holes are a bit weird because they're indented here, so I'm going to have to print up some little spaces. Same with down the bottom, there's only those two there, so I'll print up some spaces for those. Other than that, that fits well, and the heater controls fit too. They're a little more sunken in. Oh God, how am I going to do this with my hand? Here we go. That's how the controls are there, which is pretty cool. And once again, those holes are kind of sunk back here, so I'll just print up some spaces for those, and then I can screw it all together. Excellent. I probably won't be able to do that today, as I'll have to print them up at home, but that is our center panel pretty much done. Now we can start thinking about moving this battery. Oh wait, I forgot about this guy. I just cut a just measured up and cut a little hole in there for that guy, and it fits really well. It's really hard to do one-handed. And that all snaps in there with a bit of a wiggle. There we go. So I've still got my hazard lights. So before we get too excited and start running cables, I need to do something about this hole up here. Oh God, that's hard to see. There we go, we'll try that. This hole here is where the air conditioning used to come through, and that's where I'm going to run the power leads. So I've got the old Duvalaki here, but I want to put a grommet on it, so I'm going to cut a plate to screw on there, and then I've got a rubber grommet I can put in there to run the cables, so I need to do that first. So, time to cut more alloy and grind stuff. Okie dokie, it's not the prettiest thing, but it doesn't have to be. So we've got the plate there, we've got the grommet that fits in, and then we've got our old grommet that fits over the top there, and that'll all go into the firewall, and then I can run the power cables through there. Excellent. So I've installed our little grommet here, and the plate, and I'm running the cables into the engine bay, and basically I'm going to take the terminals off of these. These are our new terminals, and crimp these guys together, tuck them all back up here. I'll make some mounts for them later and just make it all nice and neat, and then hopefully I've got enough cable in the cabin to extend it, otherwise I'll have to do some more joiners. Let's see what happens. Oh, 20-year-old electrical tape is the stickiest, grossest stuff ever. So I'm unraveling the old wiring loom here. What I need to do is, that's the main feed to the starter motor. and that is the main feed to the fuse box. So I need to connect those two up to the red guy. I just need to figure out the cleanest and neatest way to do it. Earth side, obviously I'm going to earth it to the chassis in the cabin where the battery is, but that's the main earth to the starter motor. And then we've got a little one here that goes into, which I'm pretty sure is the fuse box. And then I've got another one, which was just part of that loom, which is just a chassis earth. What I'm trying to find here is this little one here. I tracked this guy down. It turns out it is the solenoid actuator for the starter motor, or the starter solenoid, or whatever the hell. So that needs to stay connected. So I just got to figure out a neat way. I might unravel this whole lot and just run a separate little loom for this around there, nice and neat, and then we can completely unclip all these. Enough apart, I've got a new plan. So these are the wires from the starter motor, and there's a hole going to the cabin. We've actually got a lot of length here, and there's no reason for them to come over this way. So I'm going to feed them straight into the cabin and then join them up in the cabin, which also gives us a bit more length, so that's fantastic. This cable here is the starter motor, actuator, solenoid, whatever. So I'm going to wrap that back up, run that through there. And then the only other one I've got to move over is this guy. That is the main feed for the fuse box. So I've got some nice thick cable there, so I'm going to extend that up over the top here, through there, and then I'll connect it up to the power when it's in there. Let's do it! So the problem I've got is these connectors to connect the battery lines and the earth lines together are super tough, and these shitty crimpers are not going to do the trick. So my old man has suggested we get a piece of steel. This measures up to about 12 mil, and we're going to drill a 10 mil hole through and cut it in half, and then we can use that in the vise and crush it. And just like that, here is our crimping tool. So, old mate goes in there in the vise, squash it together, and that'll squash it nicely. And here we go, nice and crimped and super duper strong. So we'll put some heat shrink on that, and we've done this guy as well, which worked out really well. So we can do the rest of them. The cables on this end are connected up to the engine and to the starter motor, so I've got to disconnect them so we can bring them out and crush them in the vise, and we're on our way. So this worked out well. That is now crimped, so that's the new lead, and this is the connector, focus, that goes to the alternator, so I've got to feed that back through now. Well, we're back. We had to call it quits the other night because it was getting late in the day, so it's now a few days later, and I have been getting my 3D print on. So check these little things out. I had to, where the old door trim was, obviously it held the locking pins in, but now these suckers just flop around everywhere. So I printed up these little guys, and they fit in there like so, and then our pin screws in, and no more rattling around. Little things like this weigh bugger all and make it a lot neater. Cool beans! So I've got one of them for both sides. I've also got these guys here, which is going to be pretty cool. So with our cabling that we did, so this cable is going to run just along here, along the, I guess you could call it the transmission tunnel, even though it's a front wheel drive. And to keep these cables in check, I've printed up a bunch of these little blocks. I'll pop them here if we can see them. It's a bit dark in here, but they're basically little scalloped blocks. One of them, these are not a pair, but they've actually got an indented recess. This little indent here, so we can put the screw in it, and it's nice and hidden. But basically, if I can hold the camera, and the cables fit in there nicely, put the top on there, that clamp shut, and then we can screw it down to parts of the chassis all the way along to where the battery goes, which will be nice and neat. So I've printed up a bunch of those. It's cool. I've also printed up the spacers. Oh god, no, don't run away. Our spacers for our stereo, so these aren't the neatest things, but no one's going to see them anyway because they're going to be behind the center panel there, the control panel. So I've got a bunch of those that'll hold it all out. So we can mount that today. We just need to cut the hole in our panel for our kill switch. So let's do that now. Alright, so there we go, the heater controls are in. I'd love to use amazing cat beds for all this, but I don't have any the right size, so I just use some screws. But they're all nylock nuts, so they won't come loose. All the controls work nicely. And we've got our kill switch in now with our big Lucky, and we'll put our hazard lights in there. I just need to get some holes organised. I just want to put some switches in for the gauges so I can turn the lights and the gauges on and off, so you know if they're too bright or too dim. I don't want them going on with the headlights. I want to actually be able to switch them on and off, so I'll put a couple of those in, and I might have to put some strengthening in here too because the switches are gnarly. They're really eBay special. You never know what you're going to get. They're super cheap, but they look really cool. Oh god, take my gloves off. Very industrial, fitting with the theme of the car. These big toggle switches, which are pretty cool, and they've got the LED in the end, but the throw in it is mega. They're really gnarly. I want to put put a couple down here. So I might have to do another alloy plate behind here just to strengthen it up. So I'll do that next. So in the engine bay, what I've done is I've just pulled out this guy, which connects to the starter motor, and that's going to go into the cabin and go to the main positive feed. This is our main feed from the fuse box, so I want to connect those two together. So I've bought some proper gauge cable, some wire for that, which will be perfect. So I'll solder those two together with a nice long solder and some heat shrink. Alrighty, there's a cut to length. Now, I'm going to get these inside this little dover, and we will crimp them using our fancy crimper we built last week. Oh god, so much fiddly. Make sure we're pushing the cable up in there so it doesn't fall out. Then we crimp away. Nice. Bottom section, now we move up. The rest of it. I'm actually doing 2 layers of heat shrink. I've got a smaller one and a bigger one, so just put the bigger one all the way away so it doesn't shrink prematurely. Hopefully some little wires hanging out which are going to be in the way, so we'll get rid of them. Perfect. Get that over there. Get the heat gun. Awesome. And make sure you don't slide your other heat shrink up too quick, because the hot wire will shrink it before you get it into place. And now, put that right in the guts. And we'll do that. Done. Now, as long as that's not rubbing on any sharp metal areas, that is nice and insulated and safe. That is our power lead ready to rock and roll. So now I can run that into the engine bay. I can solder that to the fuse box line. That can go back onto the starter motor, and that is pretty much everything this end done. So we can neaten it all up. We can put on our little securing blocks, make it all pretty. Cables back into the engine, so we've got them there ready for the kill switch. I went a bit long on this, but that's okay. I want to put my clamps in. Unfortunately, I can't find any countersunk screws the right size. And yes, I know I didn't call it countersunk earlier. I'm not going to lie to you guys. I'm a little hungover today and words escaped me. But yeah, I need to go and get some countersunk screws. So for now, I'm just going to put in a standard bolt, and then I'll get some countersunks the right length. But we've got all these old spots here from the old interior panels, so I can put some blocks up here. Now I can run the cables all the way along. So I'm gonna... Okay, so now I've got to solder these 2 guys together.
Little.
And that is done. It wasn't the best soldering I've ever done, but it's strong as hell, so that'll do. No, I'm not going to show it to you. I'm going to heat shrink it so no one ever gets to see it again. Okay, so cables are run. The next thing we need to do is figure out what the hell to do with this battery. Now, I know there's probably some scientific weight measurement thing of where I should put this. Basically, I just want it in between the wheels, and I'm going to put it on the passenger side, offset the driver's seat. Makes sense to me. Now, my original plan was just stick the battery here, and I'm going to put some threaded rod through here, bolt it up underneath the car, and a clamp on top, and that'll hold it all in place, because that's a big heavy thing to have in the cabin, and if I roll this sucker, I don't want that coming loose. So I want it nice and strong. However, under here is the fuel tank. So if we take this plug out, that is the fuel tank right there. So that makes it a bit trickier. Now obviously we've got this big lump here, and from what I can feel there's not much under there. So I could put a threaded rod into there, and this side's a bit of like a ramp up, so I'm pretty sure I could put a nut under there too. There's not a whole heap of room, but either way I think I'm going to have to drop the fuel tank out so I can check this out. It's not bad anyway, because I have no idea what fuel's in this car. It's still got the fuel that was in it when I bought it, and this car had been sitting there for years, so it's probably the shittest, dankest old fuel. So we'll drop the tank off. I'll jack the car up, drop the tank off, and we can check that out, and we can also probably get rid of the old fuel and give the tank a bit of a clean up and get ready for some new fuel. Race fuel! No, it's just normal fuel. Okay, about half an hour later, this is where we're up to. So there's the fuel tank, and unfortunately the sway bar's in the way, so I'm just disconnecting the sway bar. As per usual, everything is bloody rusted and seized on, so I've almost got it off now. I've got the main feed pipes there, I've just got to undo them, and then the fuel pump stuff inside the car is undone. I've already got the straps undone. Oh god, the straps that hold the fuel tank on. I've got the jack just supporting it. So hopefully once I take this sway bar off, it should drop out. I have no idea how much fuel's in there, we'll find out. And it's out. That was a freaking mission. It's still got quite a lot of fuel in there. I have no idea how old it is, so I'm gonna stick it in a container and we can use it for cleaning and things like that. Yeah, I only spilt a little bit. Ooh, not too bad. Yeah, everything is super filthy, so I can give it a good clean up. It also tells me there's a lot of fuel in there, and my fuel gauge says nothing, so I'm pretty sure the fuel gauge is buggered, or the sender or something like that, so we'll suss that out too. Okay, so before we put that fuel tank back in, just like everything else with this car, I want to give it all a clean up. It's nothing worse than putting stuff back in dirty. Other things I've discovered, this rear sway bar, all the bushes are absolutely shagged, all the rubbers are shagged. I want to put in a heavy duty one anyway. White line do one for this car, which is quite a bit thicker, so I'll get that, and I'm pretty sure that comes with all the nylethane bushes for both ends like this. So I'll put this back in the car because I don't think I can afford a sway bar right now. And yeah, we'll give the underneath a good clean up, but now we need to look at where this battery is going to mount up. So we'll have a look at that, and then we can put the holes in that, we can mount that all up, and then we can clean up the fuel tank and put the tank back in. This sucker will clean. I've already taped up all the bits because we don't want any water in the fuel tank. That'd be shit. Perfect. Now, while that's drying in the sun, we can go back to trying to fit this battery. You dry there, friend. Yes. You know those days when you work on things and it feels like it's trying to kill you? This is one of those freaking days. I just skinned myself on the edge of this. There's a good layer of skin laying there somewhere. Come on, race car. Work on me here. Don't you want to be a race car? Bleeding. Ain't nobody got time for that. Oh, gross. Alright, let's keep going. So what I've done is I found a space, you can see that hole there, I found a space that fits just behind the fuel tank, so we'll be able to get the nylock on there really well. And it's a nice flat platform, so that's easy. This one's on an angle, so what I'm going to do is drill a square bit of hollow section, and I'm going to cut it on the angle, and then put a piece on the top and a piece on the bottom, and that'll keep the threaded rod straight so it's not pulling on an angle. Well, that's the theory anyway. Let's see what happens. Okay, so we've stuck a 8mm hole in it, and now we're going to cut along that line on the bandsaw. Yeah, now I put gloves on. Okay, I think I've cut myself enough on sharp crap today, so we're going to file these down, get them all nice and not so sharp, and then we'll paint them up and see if they fit. Okie dokie, so here's the theory, because we have our threaded rod, where is it? Here. Which will go up through that hole from the bottom. Obviously if we just do it up, it's going to come on an angle, so we've got these little angled pieces here that should guide the rod a bit straighter. They're not 100% on the angle, but they're pretty bloody close. And we're done. I didn't film much of that because basically I just wanted to get it done, but there are little angled sections, so there's the same one underneath the car, and that it's pretty straight, it's not too bad. We've got this one in here, so there's a nylock bottom and top, and they are nice and tight, so then we can do a bar across and that'll hold the battery in there nice and tight. So now I'm going to get this bloody fuel tank back in. Fun and games. And that's us done for today. Unfortunately, as much as you can measure up and plan, I've got these supports in, but they are touching the fuel tank, so that sucks. So what we're going to do, I spoke to my old man, and we're actually going to weld this plate on, and then just run the nut underneath that, so it doesn't have to go through under the fuel tank. And we do a little box section for the other side and do the same thing. Means we can bring it closer to the battery, we don't have to worry about the fuel tank. Yeah, look, you got to try these things. I still got to take the fuel tank out, get rid of the old fuel, give it all a clean up. So it's not the end of the world. We did get our center console done today, which was really cool. And we've got the wires there ready for that. And I've just got to run the ignition and the wires for this, and that's all ready to go. So yes, we are getting there. I'll be back in a few days to do some more.